A story by Bedtime. Mrs. Abiola was the kind of woman people admired from a distance. Every morning when she stepped out of her compound, neighbors would whisper in amazement. Her wigs were always fresh, her clothes expensive, and her phone never left her ear. To everyone around her, she looked like a woman whose life had finally come together. But the truth behind that perfect image was something nobody knew, not even her husband. Her husband, Connor, was a hardworking man who believed in slow progress. He worked long hours and still struggled to provide everything their family needed. Yet somehow, Mrs. Abiola's lifestyle began changing overnight. One evening Connor looked around their sitting room in confusion. "Abiola, when did you buy this new TV?" he asked slowly. Mrs. Abiola smiled casually while scrolling through her phone. "Oh, that one. Office bonus," she replied quickly. Connor nodded, though something about the answer felt strange. The truth was much darker. Mrs. Abiola had started working closely with her wealthy boss, Mr. Johnson, a powerful businessman who controlled many companies in the city. At first, their relationship was strictly professional. But one night after work, Mr. Johnson leaned closer to her in his office. "You work very hard, Mrs. Abiola," he said with a smile that carried hidden meaning. And that was the moment everything started changing. At first, Mrs. Abiola tried to ignore the attention from her boss. She told herself she was a married woman and should not entertain such thoughts. But Mr. Johnson was not the kind of man who easily gave up. One afternoon, he called her into his office again. "Sit down, Abiola," he said calmly. She sat across from him, trying to remain professional. Then he pushed a small shopping bag toward her. "What is this, sir?" she asked nervously. "Just a little appreciation," he replied. Inside the bag was an expensive designer handbag she had only seen celebrities carry online. Her heart began racing. "Sir, I cannot accept this," she said weakly. Mr. Johnson leaned back in his chair. "You deserve a better life, Abiola. I can give you that." That sentence stayed in her mind the entire night. When she got home, Connor was struggling to fix the broken generator. "I'm sorry, Abiola," he sighed. "Money is tight this month." Mrs. Abiola watched him silently. For the first time, the gap between her dreams and her reality felt painfully wide. That night she stared at the expensive handbag again. And slowly, temptation began winning. Weeks passed, and the relationship between Mrs. Abiola and her boss slowly crossed the line. What started as harmless gifts turned into secret meetings. Expensive dinners. Hotel rooms far away from the office. Mr. Johnson treated her like a queen. One evening while they were sitting in a luxury restaurant, he smiled at her warmly. "You see this life, Abiola," he said. She looked around at the sparkling lights and rich guests. "Yes. This can be your everyday life," he continued. Her eyes widened. "Really?" Mr. Johnson nodded. "All you need to do is stay close to me." From that moment, Mrs. Abiola stopped pretending. Money began flowing into her life. New wigs. Expensive shoes. A brand new iPhone. Her neighbors were shocked. "Abiola don't blow, oh," one woman whispered outside. Even Connor noticed the sudden change. "Your office must really value you," he said proudly one night. Mrs. Abiola forced a smile. "Yes, they do." But inside her heart, guilt quietly began growing. Still, the comfort of luxury was stronger than her conscience. And the secret continued. What Mrs. Abiola did not know was that secrets rarely stay hidden forever. Mr. Johnson's wife, Mrs. Johnson, was a quiet but extremely observant woman. She had been married to her husband long enough to recognize when something was wrong. Late nights. Secret phone calls. Sudden business trips. One evening she picked up his phone while it vibrated on the table. A message appeared. "Good night, Sir Red Heart." The sender's name was saved as A. Mrs. Johnson stared at the screen silently. Something inside her told her the truth immediately. The next day she decided to investigate. By evening, she already knew the woman's identity. Mrs. Abiola. Instead of causing a public scandal, Mrs. Johnson decided to handle the situation quietly. She requested a meeting. When Mrs. Abiola arrived at the cafe, she was shocked to see the elegant woman sitting calmly. "Please sit down," Mrs. Johnson said. Mrs. Abiola felt her stomach twist. "I know about you and my husband," Mrs. Johnson said calmly. The words hit like thunder. Mrs. Abiola's lips trembled. I can explain." Mrs. Johnson raised her hand. "No explanation is necessary." She leaned forward slightly. "Just stay away from my husband." Then she stood up and walked away. But Mrs. Abiola made the biggest mistake of her life. She ignored the warning. Instead of ending the affair, Mrs. Abiola convinced herself that Mrs. Johnson was only trying to scare her. After all, Mr. Johnson still called her every night. "You don't need to worry about my wife," he told her confidently. "She cannot do anything." That reassurance made Mrs. Abiola feel safe again. But at home, Connor was slowly noticing strange things. One night he saw a notification flash across her phone. "Miss you already, Red Heart." Connor frowned. "Who is that?" he asked quietly. Mrs. Abiola quickly locked the phone. "Just office group chat," she replied nervously. Connor didn't push further. But doubt had already entered his heart. Days later, something worse happened. Connor's friend worked in the same business district as Mr. Johnson's company. One afternoon he spotted something shocking. Mrs. Abiola entering a hotel with another man. That single moment would soon destroy everything. Because the truth was about to come out. And when it did, 3 lives would never be the same again. Connor did not believe what his friend told him at first. The words kept ringing in his ears the entire night. "Connor, I saw your wife today," his friend had said earlier. Connor laughed nervously. "My wife? At the market?" His friend shook his head slowly. "No, at a hotel. With another man." Connor's heart dropped instantly. He tried to defend her. "That's impossible. You must have mistaken her." But his friend pulled out his phone. "I didn't mistake anything." Then he showed Connor the picture. The moment Connor saw it, the ground beneath him felt like it had disappeared. It was Mrs. Abiola, walking into a hotel lobby, beside a man he had never seen before. Connor's hands started shaking. "Maybe it's work," he whispered weakly. But deep inside, he already knew the truth. That night when Mrs. Abiola returned home, she noticed something strange. Connor was sitting quietly in the dark living room. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" she asked casually. Connor looked up slowly. "Where were you today?" She froze. "At work," she replied immediately. Connor then placed his phone on the table and pushed it toward her. "Look at the picture." The moment Mrs. Abiola saw it, her heart nearly stopped. The secret she had buried for months had finally been exposed. For a few seconds, the room was completely silent. Mrs. Abiola felt her throat go dry. Connor's voice came out low but filled with pain. "So, this is the office work you've been doing?" Tears immediately filled her eyes. "Connor, please listen." "Listen to what?" he suddenly shouted. His voice echoed across the house. "Listen to how you've been cheating on me." Mrs. Abiola fell to her knees. "It's not what you think." Connor laughed bitterly. "Then explain it." She tried to speak but the words refused to come out. How could she explain months of lies? How could she explain the expensive gifts? How could she explain the hotel meetings? Connor's eyes filled with disappointment. "I trusted you," he said quietly. "I defended you whenever people said your lifestyle changed too quickly." Mrs. Abiola cried harder. "I was going to stop. I swear." Connor shook his head slowly. "Stop? After how long?" Then he asked the question that broke her completely. "Do you love him?" Mrs. Abiola stayed silent. That silence was the answer. Connor stood up slowly. "Pack your things," he said coldly. Mrs. Abiola looked up in shock. "You cannot stay in this house anymore." In that moment, the comfortable life she had been living began collapsing around her. But the worst part of the story had not even started yet. After being thrown out of her house, Mrs. Abiola ran straight to the only place she thought would protect her, her boss. When she arrived at Mr. Johnson's office the next morning, her eyes were swollen from crying. "Sir, my husband found out," she said nervously. Mr. Johnson frowned. "How?" "I don't know, but he saw pictures." For a moment, Mr. Johnson looked worried. Then his phone suddenly rang. The caller ID showed his wife. He picked up immediately. "Yes." On the other end, Mrs. Johnson's voice was calm but dangerous. "I hope you are enjoying your little affair." Mr. Johnson's face turned pale. "You're overreacting," he replied. Mrs. Johnson laughed quietly. "Oh no. I'm just getting started." Then she hung up. Within 2 days, Mr. Johnson's company board members received anonymous evidence of his affair with an employee. Photos, hotel records, bank transfers. The scandal exploded like wildfire. Soon the company began investigating him for misconduct. Mr. Johnson was furious. "You said nobody would find out," he shouted at Mrs. Abiola. "I didn't tell anyone," she cried. But Mr. Johnson was no longer interested in excuses. "You've ruined everything." And just like that, the man who once promised her luxury began pushing her away. As the scandal spread across the company, Mr. Johnson's reputation collapsed quickly. Investors began withdrawing support, and the board members demanded answers. Mrs. Johnson watched everything quietly from the sidelines. She had not shouted. She had not fought. But her revenge was far more powerful. One afternoon Mr. Johnson called Mrs. Abiola again. But his voice sounded very different this time. "Abiola, we cannot continue this." Her heart dropped. "What do you mean?" "I'm already losing too much." Tears filled her eyes. "But you said you loved me." Mr. Johnson sighed impatiently. "Don't be childish." Those words felt like a knife in her chest. "So after everything, you're abandoning me?" Mr. Johnson stayed silent. Then he said the final words. "This was never supposed to be serious." The call ended. Mrs. Abiola sat on the bed staring at the wall. Her husband had thrown her out. Her boss had abandoned her. Her reputation was ruined. And the luxury lifestyle she once enjoyed had disappeared overnight. For the first time in months, reality finally caught up with her choices. Months later, Mrs. Abiola's life looked completely different. The expensive wigs were gone. The designer bags were gone. Even the fancy apartment she temporarily rented was gone. She now lived in a small room in another part of the city, far away from the life she once enjoyed. One evening she sat quietly listening to the rain hitting the roof. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from Connor's number. Her heart raced as she opened it. But it wasn't him. It was a simple notification. "This number has been changed." That was the moment the reality finally settled in. Her marriage was truly over. Connor had moved on with his life. And Mr. Johnson? He was still fighting legal battles to save his company. Mrs. Johnson had disappeared quietly after destroying the affair that threatened her marriage. Mrs. Abiola leaned back slowly and closed her eyes. For the first time, she understood something important. Luxury built on lies never last. And sometimes, the price of betrayal is losing everything you once took for granted. So if you're watching this story right now, remember this lesson. Temporary pleasure can destroy permanent blessings. And one wrong decision can change an entire life forever. If this story got you hooked, I beg don't forget to like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments why you love the story. Thank you, lovelies, for listening. More interesting videos are dropping soon.